everyone. We're kind of doing one of our last big pushes towards getting our models done today. So I'm just going to show you the finishing details before you glue it all together. I hope that I can see that a lot of you, the videos have not been viewed from last week, so I hope that you're not ignoring them, because ultimately you're going to run into the issue of you're not going to know what to do, and then we'll maybe find that the final grade on your projects isn't satisfying if you don't have them built correctly. So let's try to avoid that. I hope that some of you are watching and that we can get this going. Alright, looks like it's running relatively smoothly. Let me get rid of that echo real quick. As per usual, let me know that you're here if you're here, and I'll keep going on what we've been doing. So yeah, right now it looks like nobody's tuned in, but I'm a few minutes early, so I'm gonna give us a little bit more time for people to catch up. I'm just gonna work on getting my braces glued in. That's going to be our supports here. So they should be a fairly tight fit, but they should not cause your piece to bow out. So if you run into that where it's bowing out a little bit, just take your X-Acto knife and go ahead and shave some of that off. By the time that you built the main structure of your platform, getting that straight and looking right, that's your goal, rather than trying to force something that's too big in there. So I will say that while I like to use my scissors a lot on these popsicle sticks, that doing those little shave off parts so much easier with the X-Acto blade. If you go back and watch the previous video, we talked about the fact that this got warped a little bit and doesn't lay flat, which of course we want it to do. So there's a few different ways we can handle that. But first, we're going to get our supports in. Now, it might be that the way that we handle that is we actually take apart one of these corners and re-glue it back together so that everything sits nice and flat. It might be that our braces do some of the work for us, so that's why we're going to start with that. Also, gentle reminder to all of you, the paper is going to be due on Friday. It's not a difficult paper, it's just a reaction to True West and the technical elements being used on that production of the show. Now I just realized I got a little ahead of myself and put glue on this stick, but first what I need to do is I need to measure out where I want those braces to be. So I'm just going to get this on here pretty nice so that hopefully you guys can see. Alright, so I get that to a place where y'all can see it. I know it gets kind of blurry, so I don't know if we'll, you can kind of see it there. Anyway, so we want to figure out where we need to put braces. We obviously need to have one in the middle, and we need to have one midway between on each end. So we're going to put 3 in. Typically, what you do is you find every 2 feet. Obviously, we don't want to do 4 feet because I don't know if you can see exactly, but 4 feet is where these two popsicle sticks meet, and you would never want to join something where it's already been joined. So we're going to go just a little bit to the right or left of that in order to make our platform as balanced as possible. That normally what you would do, I'm just marking off. So let's put it here, I think. It's going to be the most use. And we'll move down our 6 foot marking to 6.5. And I think that that will work for what we're doing. Normally, you would just use an 8 foot long stick of 2x4 and you wouldn't have to deal with that issue. But because of the nature of our popsicle sticks, we do need to be a little bit more cautious of that. Now, we'll go ahead and get our braces in here. And by shaving off a little bit of that one, it looks a little bit better. We want to make sure we get it all lined up. And let's put our next one in. And so you kind of want to remember what the purpose of this is. It is adding strength to our platform. So we've got a bit of a situation there. Might have to shave this one down. Yeah. Alright, we're going to have to shave that one down. It wants to bow out our wall. So, and to be completely honest, what I think happened here is I think that looking at this corner here, let me see if I can give you guys a closer view of it. This corner here, you can see that my stick shifted just a little bit, but that's all it takes, and that's true when you're building as well. If something gets off, it doesn't take much. It's an eighth of an inch can throw everything off. But that it's shifted, and so it's actually made the width of my platform a little bit thinner than it would have been before. So we're gonna try to accommodate that. Also, we are down to a grand total of today and tomorrow for live, or today and Friday for live feeds. And then next week is finals week. So if you're having any kind of trouble with this process, please reach out to me. Don't wait until it's Thursday night and you're working on throwing this together and things aren't going well to email me and say, I don't know what to do, why isn't this working? You need to be working on this now. And I'm not saying that because I think that you are out there procrastinating or anything. And if you are, you're in great company. I'm not immune to the effects of what the coronavirus and quarantine has sort of had on our lives by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm certainly sitting here thinking to myself, do I have to do this thing? But this is one of those things that you do have to do. You do have to get it done. Because if you don't, this makes up a decent portion of your grade. So just don't let yourself fall into that complacency is basically what I'm saying. A week feels like and sounds like a long time. But if you just did, you know, one wall, one platform a day, something like that, then it would all come together fairly easily for you. And you won't have the situation where you're trying to scramble and get it all done at once. I also, looking at this, think that this is never going to be perfectly straight because of where that popsicle stick shifted. Trying to show you guys here. You can see where it's got some bowing issues, and that stems from this area up here. It's definitely coming from the problem here. So, you know, that sort of thing happens. I'm not expecting these to be examples of perfect construction. You're using glue and popsicle sticks. But, you know, do your best to straighten it out. It will make the rest of your process go a lot easier. And sometimes, like I said, when these kind of problems happen, and this is true of constructing a platform, a flat, whatever it might be in the scene shop as well, sometimes you just have to start over. Sometimes it turns out something went wrong, or it got torqued, excuse me, and there's not a lot you can do to fix it. It's just, it is what it is, you know, and you gotta try again. So let's put our last brace in. I also want to remind you that I will need pictures with a figure in your space. So that is something that we're going to do today as well, is create little figures. The reason that these figures are necessary is because essentially, if you don't give context to how big these things are supposed to be, we don't know what we're looking at. So if you know, maybe I want these massively tall walls and I don't put a figure in there, so it just looks like I've got a short guy, or they look like normal walls. It's really important to have those elements in play to help whoever's looking at your model understand. So I'm having a bit of trouble here because one popsicle stick wants to make the other one flare out. So we're going to put some more glue on it, and I'm going to trap it and put pressure on it so that it does what I need it to do. Basically, we're going to do this. Lean it up. And why don't you want to sit right? In many, many ways, it's easier to do this with the real thing than popsicle sticks, because you're not going to be relying on glue to hold it together. So I'm going to get this out of the way and put some weight on it so that it dries properly. Okay, when you get done with that, I'm going to let that dry, but when you get done with that, you will do essentially what we've done with our flat here. And you're going to cut out the sheet good part of it. Now what I did here, if you didn't watch the previous video, is I essentially just went ahead and glued my frame directly to a piece of paper rather than cutting out a piece of paper and gluing that down. And the reason I did that is because I get 2 straight edges for free. I get the straight edge of the paper itself. And so now I've got my flat. Now I've got a little bit of overhang here because I shifted it, I think, when I was putting it on there, but that's okay because we can fix that with our X-Acto blade. So we're gonna get that excess removed. And there we have it. So you can see the back of my frame shows you my flat, and in the front, this would be my wall. Now, when you get done with this, when you've got the platforms for your floor all lined up, essentially you would just glue this on top. You might need to take a popsicle stick and glue it to, so if this is your platform, you might need to take a popsicle stick and glue them together like this in order to give it a little extra support. But essentially, they should work together. This is pretty lightweight, but strong, because we made it with proper building methods. So, that's that. The next thing I want to show you is, if you watched my previous video, I showed you how to work with the model magic that I sent you to make your furniture pieces. This is my table. Now, as you can see, it did stretch out a little bit, but now that it's dry, it's going to be a lot easier for me to cut off those ugly bits that weren't right. I'll shave off that guy. And so as you can see, when this dries, it doesn't become hard like clay. It's very flexible still. It feels kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's those, it's that material that like they would have you play with as kids. And would cut letters out of it, and it was really soft foam. That's what this kind of feels like, but I'm not able to think of what that's called right now off the top of my head. But it's a lot easier to manipulate. So as long as you make your original piece a little bit bigger, you can always cut off those areas that didn't turn out the prettiest. And so I'm just doing that right now. And it's going to take to glue in very much the same way as our popsicle sticks do. So I have my completed leg here. So I'm just going to, and I have it nice and flat so it can stand up. So I am just going to get some glue on there. And with this, a little bit of excess isn't too bad of an idea. It's going to absorb a little bit differently. And you can just let it dry. Now this wants to bow up a little bit, so once again, this would be an example where I would add a little bit of weight so that we don't have too much tippage. Not seeing where my other legs went. Got one, but the other 2 are gone. That's okay. We'll work with what we've got. Hello. We'll get these on here. And once they're dry, they should be able to sit upright. If you run into an issue where they're still not sitting upright, it might be that the the glue, let it shift over a little bit. What I would recommend doing is just cutting these bottoms off so that they're flat, and it should sit up nicely. You'll also notice, I'm gonna take this off of here, the glue is drying a lot faster on this. Like, I already would have to pull a little bit to get those legs off. So it's not gonna dry at the same speed that it dries on your popsicle sticks. Keep that in mind. This is a bit more of an absorbent material. But yeah, assuming that I could find my other two legs, we would have the very table that I'm working on right now. These are still a little tacky, so the idea of me showing you this is maybe not the best idea, but you can see how this would work. Yep, there it goes. Get back on there. And there we are. The platform I have is still drying. So in the meantime, I want to show you a couple things. So this is what happens if you don't put your model magic away. I left some out last time because I wanted you guys to see so that you didn't ruin the product that you have at home. It essentially breaks apart like if you've ever made a meringue, that's kind of what it feels like on the inside. There's still a little bit of there's still a level of malleability in the inner material, but that outside edge is crusty and not usable. So we're gonna make our figures. I'm gonna make mine out of Model Magic and popsicle sticks. You are free to make them out of whatever you want. As per the rubric, the required number of figures is 2. The reason that I want you to have 2 is because it gives a better sense of perspective. If I'm looking at something and there's only one figure in there, with a picture you can change the way things look with your photography without even necessarily meaning to. And that's just how photography works. So if you have 2 figures, you can essentially, it's not like that becomes an impossibility, but if you have them in 2 different parts of your set, you've got a better sense of perspective. Anyway, so two figures. Now, the average figure when you're making a model is going to be 6 feet tall. For us, that would be here. So I've got a little ways to go. He probably needs to be about double his size. So, well, we're gonna keep going. Put on a little weight figure. Okay. While I'm getting this rolled out, do any of you who are watching have any questions for me? Have you come across any issues while you've been working on your models? Is there anything that you wish that I was teaching in these tutorials that I haven't so far? Especially given that we only have one more. A little bit taller. Okay, we have our string bean of a figure. And he's pretty much 6 feet tall. Okay, so I'm going to take my popsicle stick and I'm going to sort of just work the dough over my popsicle stick. This will just give him a little bit more structure and make it less likely that our figure is going to be tippy and want to fall over and things like that. If you wanted to just make your figure out of paper, totally okay. If you want to make your figure look like somebody specific, totally okay. You know, You can be as creative with this as you want. I'm going to create a base for my figure so that he wants to stand up all on his own. And if this was all you did and he was 6 feet tall and you gave him a couple of eyes, oops, let me get it so you can see him. Can you show me? There he is. So if you had your figure and he was 6 feet tall and he could stand on his own and this was all you had, that would be just fine. He would be your figure. And especially if you designate him in a way that clearly demonstrates that this is not a floor lamp or a speaker or something weird in your room. Just you want to make sure that you're creating a figure that is distinct enough from the rest of what you've made. So I have the main part of my figure here. I'm going to give him a little bit more detail. So let's smooth him out. We're going to make him some feet. Okay, we're going to add just a little bit on the front of his feet for his toes. Are we supposed to build all 4 walls of the room like the ground plan, or build it like we look at it on stage? Build it like you look at it on stage. So in the rubric, it should clarify that you are cutting out a 4th wall, so that essentially it should look as though you've more like you've made a TV set or a movie set. Normally we wouldn't use square walls. A lot of times what we would do, quit moving there. A lot of times, I'm just going to use some popsicle sticks to lay out what I mean here. Get these out of the way. So, a lot of the time, in movie sets, they want it to look like this. You've got your 4 walls, boom, right? They should be fairly, will you quit trying to die? It should be fairly straight. When we're doing a theater set, we almost always do this. Why? Because it gives the audience a better view. I don't want you to change the way that the walls function in your space. I just want you to take off a wall and just not build that wall. Does that make sense? Alright, we need to balance our figure out here because he keeps wanting to fall over. So, we're going to give him some arms. He wants, apparently, to have one really muscular arm based on how this is breaking down. So, you know, who am I to tell Bob who he's supposed to be? Alright. Bob's going to flex with this arm. And just be chill with this one. and I am genuine when I say I don't really care too much about what your figures end up looking like. I just want them to be 6 foot tall, and it should be clear that it is at least humanoid in nature. So if you just want him to be a very chill little figure, go for it. I'm gonna give Bob some eyes here. Bob is slowly becoming a lizard from a Disney cartoon. Like one who's a bad guy. I can't think of what movie he would be in, but I like know this lizard. So proud of my beautiful creation. I need, is humanoid octopus okay as a figure? Yeah, it's fine. As long as your humanoid octopus is 6 feet tall, I will not take points off. Maybe that's the show you're putting on. Maybe you're just like, humanoid octopuses. And who am I to tell you not to put on a show about humanoid octopuses? Alright. Let's give you some shoulders and a bit of a neck, Bob. Keep flexing, Bob. Keep flexing. Alright. He's very upset, and he's also very tall and skinny. But yeah. You'll want to put your figure wherever your figure might be. On a place where it can dry that's flat, so that it will sit flat when you go to use it. I would say that that's going to be your biggest self-support. Let's see. Okay. Like I said, you can put as much detail or as little detail into your figures. If you want to paint them, paint them. If you don't, don't. But let me show you something that's great about, that's great about our model magic. You can paint it when it's dry. So, and that will fade in a little bit, especially because this is a watercolor pen that I'm using. So that will fade in. Markers might have a little bit different outcome. Or you can also paint it when it's wet, knowing that you might have to go back over it when it dries. So I can make his eyes a little bit more pronounced in his smile. Now he's kind of like a blobby snowman. Give him some pants. There's your sense of respect, Bob. Alright, and we'll give him just a little button down. And that's our Bob. So, that's just what I did right now. Depending on how complicated my show is, sometimes I put more time into, well, usually I don't create a 6 foot figure, so it's a lot easier. But a lot of times, what I do, I don't think I have any on hand, but I use figures that are 1/4 of an inch. So I usually just use these bot figures that I have, just to give you a sense of scale, 1/4 of an inch is the size of these doors. So, Bob, be respectful. So yeah, so in that case, I almost never build a figure for those because I just use those. I tend to lean on the side of making them look either very non-human. So I'll do something like this, where I'll just put a circle to indicate the top of the head. And then, and this is something that's fairly common. I think there's even a precedent for doing this in some AutoCAD applications. But I'll essentially just create this triangle that goes down from the top of the head to indicate that it is our figure. This is kind of hastily and sloppily drawn, but you get the basis of the idea. But what I want you guys to create a more humanoid figure. Like I said, he doesn't need to be amazing. You don't need to spend hours and hours making him. Just make something. You can make him out of popsicle sticks. You can make him out of Model Magic. You can make him out of paper if you want. You know, if you want to draw your guy and you just want, you know, drawing our man Bob here. In this one, he's a little more casual. He's wearing his Hawaiian shirt. So if you want this kind of idea to be your figure, I'm okay with that too, as long as you just have a way for it to stand up straight. So it doesn't need to be three-dimensional. You know, it can just be, hey, I've got my guy here. I got Bob, or your gal, or your non-binary person. It's entirely up to you. It is your world to create. So just give me something, gives me a sense of height. All right. So, any questions before I say goodbye? Because everything is either drying or we're pretty much there. Of course, you can always email me any questions that you have. Prioritize getting your paper done, I would say. You know, you need to have that done May 1st, so we need to make sure that that gets done. Don't overthink that paper though either. It's just a analysis of the play that you're doing, that you're seeing from a technical perspective. If you're not 100% sure on what the expectations are for that, go ahead and double check your rubric. I emailed it to you, so if you can't figure out where you've got it, check your emails from me. If you still can't find it for whatever reason, just send me an email asking for it and I'll email it out to you. But then, yeah, we don't have much time left to work on this project, so definitely don't put it on the back burner for too long. Alright, I'm not seeing any other questions, so I'm going to call it a day. You guys have a good afternoon. Bye.